So as we continue in this video, now we'll get into more of the specifics for what is statistics about. So we'll go through our syllabi, talk about a few things, still talk about some good habits overall. But one very quick thing I want to point out. First thing, you can print as much or as little as you want in this class. I mean, obviously, accessing YouTube and everything, you do need some, connection to the internet, smartphone, laptop, TV, whatever it is that you're getting access so you could watch those videos. But then what do you need to print? Well, do you need to print your syllabus? You don't need to. You have the same access. You could watch it through your same, view it through your electronic devices. All the notes that I give to you, same thing. Some people like to print them out, to use them for their own notes, or to make their notes on top of those. There's a lot of different ways to work, but you don't have to print out. Same thing with your exams. Again, we still have a separate video talk about submitting, but some people, they just print out their exams because they like doing their work on them. But for other people, again, it's all available electronically and you don't have to print. I definitely wanted to point that out. The second thing, just to quickly point out, writing things out. Again, in this online version of the class, you don't have to memorize. Even in a regular in-person, there's not so much you have to memorize. If we were in person when we have tests, I give you a little formula page. You have to know how to use the formulas. I don't tell you what the notation stands for, what each letter in the formula stand for. But, at least you don't have to memorize it. Online, it's even more so the situation. You're taking your tests at home, so of course you could always look up the formulas that you need and use them. But I still want to make a little point about writing things out. Because like I said, we are going to be back in person in the fall. So whether you're still at Queensborough or transferring, you don't want to forget good in-person habits. And for a lot of us, even as technologies become better, we forget how much writing, just writing things down, the connection between your hand and your brain. So I just wanted to say that because some people, again, they don't really take great notes now in this online session. And they make it work in online, but you're going to get back in trouble when you go back to the in-person. So just to remember that the hand connects with the brain. There's a reason for a lot of us when we're in, low levels of school, when we're learning our multiplication tables, learning our alphabet, there's a reason that so many of your teachers will write out the tables over and over. It's a big connection to the brain and really helps with memorization. So I wanted to say those couple of things, but now let's start looking at our syllabi and we'll start add more of the specifics. So you have two syllabi, my little extra, and the department syllabi. Let's start with the department. So once again, this is statistics. As a prerequisite, people should have completed either Math 119 with a C or better, Math 114 with a C or better, or just a satisfactory score on their placement exam. If you have any questions, you just let me know about that. I want to stop right there for a moment and point out that means we're coming from a lot of different backgrounds. Some people, from their high school classes, they've seen aspects of statistics before. Some people have literally seen none of this before. All their previous math is all like algebra based or, trig. But these aspects, and I want to make that very clear, statistics is a little different. So whether you've had a good background in math and you like math, or you've always hated math, this is a little bit of a fresh start in a lot of ways. The background that you need, well, we have to be able to use a little bit of algebra, a little bit on our calculators. But whether you're good at that or bad at that, you'll get plenty of practice here. That won't be what holds you back. So like I said, this is kind of a fresh class in a lot of ways. So no matter what your previous experience with a math class, this is different. So I hope you're ready to treat it differently as far as your preparation, your study, your habits, all those things. It's going to make a difference. Second thing I want to point out right off the bat, with our different backgrounds, statistics gets used in so many different places. So, a part of our first video, our first instructional video, is going to be a lot of what statistics about. And it's going to be a rare video in that it's not going to be me focused over and, you seeing my hand and my notes. It's going to be a video where, like this one, where we're talking to each other. And I'll point out some things in the book. But there's going to be a lot of general discussion because statistics gets used in so many different places. What's your major? Are you in business? Well, statistics gets used a lot in business, and it gets used differently whether you're in marketing, accounting, finance, logistics. Different aspects of statistics gets used differently. Get into science. Well, same thing, science. Are you experimenting so that you're literally using the data and making conclusions? Or maybe you're taking advantage of somebody else's study to try and make further conclusions, try and take ideas further. Social science versus hard science, differences in how we make those conclusions. Individually, inside of the sciences, if you're in any of the health science and you're looking at, being a doctor, a nurse, physical therapy, occupational therapy, a technician, all these things, you use statistics, but use it differently. Just as regular people, well, we are citizens. We are citizens of this country. We are people who live in neighboring towns or live in states. So there's political decisions and school board decisions that get made. We are consumers. When we are trying to buy a new car, a new computer, a new TV, there's a lot of information. So it's my simple point right now is that we come from a lot of different backgrounds. We use statistics in a lot of different ways. So as we go through this class, I'm always going to be very clear, reality versus what we're doing in class. And they're very close, but sometimes it's just a little, I don't want to say fudged, but we're not getting the full aspect of what you do in your regular day-to-day job because we're focusing on this particular aspect, this particular technique. But at the end, we want to try and have some ability to put it all together. So, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different uses. So again, it's just a little bit of a different class overall. There's not just, the regular, here are problems, can you solve them? There's the extra thinking. We have to be able to read. We have to be able to write a little bit. So we've got a lot to discuss here. So our backgrounds, a lot of different places we come from. Any question though, certainly let me know. Make sure you're in the right spot, the right place. Hours, 3 class hours, 1 lab hour, 4 hours a week. Now, we're not going to meet in a lab, and we'll talk a little bit about how Excel as a program can help with a lot of these statistical features, making graphs and charts, doing some of the computation. But not everybody has Excel, so we'll see exactly how much we'll do. At a minimum, I'll at least give you some, a little instruction, maybe some YouTube videos, maybe it's me using it or another video I found. I have a nice little lab book that if you're ever using Excel to give you some basic instruction and directions. The other thing with Excel, it's a very common program. It's not the only spreadsheet that there is, there's others. But it's a very common program. A lot of people have it, but just the versions. I have a bit of an older version on my laptop. The newer versions that we'd have in the computer lab, there's still subtle differences. So again, there will be technically a little bit of lab, but it's not going to be that formal. So basically it's 4 class hours a week. As we said in that first video, that means an extra 4 to 12 outside of class for 8 to 16 hours each week. That's what you should be thinking about. And you should really be thinking about your schedule. Maybe you want to work, technically our class is on Monday, Thursday, so you want to stick with those time frames and you're going to watch your videos and get a lot of your work done. And that's one way that you kind of keep on track. That's fine, but you don't have to. Again, you could make it work. You could make your plan and you could say, well, this week I'm going to work on statistics Tuesday and Thursday. Next week, I know I'm a little busy, so I'll do it Monday. You can make it work, but you want to be thinking about that type of time frame and certainly realize it's not going to be the same every single week. For some people, just getting used to statistics, they put a little more time in the beginning, and then as they get a little more accustomed to the class itself, to my style, they can kind of, shorten that a little bit as they go further along. Other people, it's the reverse. The class for some people starts a little bit on the easier side. And, as the problems, as the cumulative process builds, that the problems get a little bit longer. Some of the actual, what most people look at as math, the math part gets a little more complicated as we get further along. The number of steps. So, you just want to be aware and you want to have some sort of a plan and to try and stick with that schedule to some extent. But that's the hours that you should be thinking about. Course description. This is an introduction to statistics. We have descriptive statistics, probability, the binomial and normal distribution, sampling, confidence intervals, tests of hypotheses. Most of that stuff probably sounds, just different and out there, but we'll get to it. We'll understand all that at the end. Here's our first big thing, okay? This is a writing intensive course. So, writing intensive, couple of big things. At QCC, you need any major, any person to get your degree, you need at least 2 classes taken as writing intensive. Now, some people would look at this like, why would I take a math class as writing intensive? But this is actually a good one because you'll see how structured these writing assignments are. That I give you very specific criteria on how you get your points. So even if you don't see yourself as a strong writer, this might be a good advantage in that the structure of these assignments, you get a writing intensive course and can do well in a class where you also enhance your writing and not have some of the other pressures that another writing intensive course might have. So we'll talk more about that. Let's keep going. The purpose is to facilitate and foster writing abilities at the college level. So the following features are incorporated. You will spend time in the semester writing in the service of learning. That'll be both on individual tests, there are some small writing components there, and big writing assignments. A minimum of 10 pages, that's total. And I'm still trying to decide exactly, are we going to do 3 writing assignments that total 10? Will it be 2? I've got a few little decisions I still need to make, but they're going to have a total of 10 pages. The professor, me, will respond to and return these pages at least once so the students have the opportunity to revise the paper before a final grade is given. We're going to follow exactly that. Any paper we have is going to have a first submission and then a second final submission. The first submission is optional, but I highly recommend you take advantage. And not just to give me a rough draft, to give me what you consider your best paper so that way I could look it over and you get my feedback. And not just well, you're missing this entire component, but that's where we can say, you're addressing this part of the paper, but you're not doing enough. You're not taking it deep enough. You need to say more. You need to explain that further. That's the best way to take advantage. Now, we are going to talk about writing a decent amount throughout the semester, some of it in the individual instructional videos, but then we'll also have some separate videos, just as you're getting a separate video for your test instruction, your test submission, we'll have an entire separate video talking about writing assignments. So we mentioned some of it now, but we're going to say a lot more on the specifics of the papers. But you will have an opportunity. Submit them, get feedback, and even if it's not your final paper, but at least get some feedback to realize, okay, I'm on the right track. I still am missing these things to make sure that those papers go well. Writing will be discussed regularly, as we keep saying. Written work is a significant portion of the grade. At least one exam will have a written component. All exams will have a written component. So that's what makes this a writing intensive. But let's keep going. And again, that'll come up more as we continue to discuss. Curricula for which the course is required? Well, a lot. As we said in the beginning, statistics gets used in a lot of different places. Hence, it's a requirement for a lot of different majors. And again, it's not so much that all of these majors, you are going to have to do all this statistical work, but the statistical work is there. So sometimes it's other people doing it, you just need to interpret it, or you just need to be able to make some basic inferences on somebody's statistical work to make good decisions. That's the point of statistics in a nutshell. Use information to make good decisions, good informed decisions. So a lot of different majors that take this for a lot of different reasons. the general objectives. Well, any math class. Why do you take math? Well, in college, what's the purpose of college? I think college is all about improving ourselves, getting used to using our brain and knowing about ourselves so in any situation, we know what we need to do. Now, some people look at college as job training. I don't quite like that, but if you adjust, if you realize that how you study for a math class is a little different than how you prepared for an English class or something like that, but you know what works for you, you're getting the most out of college. And especially in a math class where we deal with a lot of sometimes abstract general situations, when you can apply ideas and have a logical, analytical structure to what you're doing there, it becomes so much better to be more efficient at work, to do things, and again, to make our lives as easy and as good as we can. So that's my general objective, but these general education objectives, using analytical reasoning skills to identify issues or problems, evaluating evidence in order to make informed decisions, reason quantitatively and mathematically as required in their fields of interest and in everyday life, integrate knowledge and skills into their programs of study. I mean, it's all that stuff we were just saying. Stats is everywhere. So that's one little thing. Not all the problems we do are going to pertain to you exactly, but they're going to pertain to us as people. So we're going to see examples from all different fields, from business, from science, from healthcare, from logistics, from just regular everyday people to politics. We're going to see examples in all different areas because that's where statistics gets applied, everywhere. And we'll see how it gets applied, how we can make good, smart decisions. So what else do we have? Well, our textbook. Now, mine is the instructors edition, as you see here. But yours, if you just focus on this portion, that's what your textbook looks like. We need the book. For homework, all homework is going to come from here. The nature of statistics, like I keep saying, to be able to think, to be able to rationalize and reason. So some of that is going to be, well, what are the other possibilities? We get this data, we get this information. What decision do we make? And what else should we be considering? For so many people in statistics, we miss that last part. We have data, we make decision, and people think that's the end. But almost just as important, what else might we want to know? What else is missing? Super quick example. If we were working, a local township is noticing that more teenage drivers are getting into car accidents. So now they want to decide, is this a problem and what to do with it? How to deal with it? Well, it's a lot of situations here. Is it a problem specifically that it's teenage drivers? If we're only using the evidence that as of 5 years ago compared to today, we see more teenage drivers getting in car accidents, that seems at a first glance like compelling evidence that for some reason teenage drivers are having problems. But what else? Maybe, one quick thing, are we just seeing more accidents in general? Maybe it's not teenage drivers specifically that's the problem. Maybe it's all drivers. Maybe there's some new construction in our township. Maybe we changed a traffic light pattern, put in a new stop sign, or need to put in a new stop sign. Maybe just traffic patterns. There's higher congestion. So there's so many reasons that more accidents might be happening. So there's so many different things to consider before we just look at one piece of evidence and conclude teenage drivers are the problem. So that's going to be a big part of this class. But that's not an easy skill to develop. How do you know what else to consider, what else you might want to know? A lot of that comes from experience. So any of the instructional videos that we get, we are going to, we're going to have those moments. Well, I'm sorry, let me start off. The instructional videos, I'm going to give you examples. I try to make them generic examples so that there's no extra bias in place. I don't make it sound like some companies are good, some companies are bad. we have some specific, but I try and make them general so that we have our minds open and we don't already have preconceived notions, something we've seen on television that says, this company is bad, this way of doing something is bad. So I try and make them general, and I try and again to cover a lot of different fields. So again, we get examples from all over the place, but I can never give you enough. So examples, we get a good number of them in the videos themselves, but we want to get into the book. We want to read the book as well. I mean, I think this is a good, well put together textbook. We'll point more of this out in that first, introduction video. They always give you objectives. What is this section about? What are we trying to get you to realize? What is a problem that we're looking at? And how can we use statistics to answer that problem, to get better information, to make better decisions? So that's going to be a continued theme here. And I like the way the book does that a lot. But you still want to read it, okay? It's not just do the homework. You still want to read it to get more examples. So when I make up my examples, I'm really trying to not do the exact same things that they do in the book. So that way when you read the book, you're adding to your experience. You're enhancing it. So textbook is important. You need the book. Now, do you need any of the extra packaging that comes with it? Sometimes it comes with WebAssign and other options for online homework. We're not doing any of that. So just the book itself. Normally in person, some people do like photocopies and, borrow from the library. Don't quite have those options. So again, some way to get access to the book. To be quite honest, since you already know I don't grade or collect your homework, you're doing your homework. Oh, answers to the odds are in the back, right? Like most books. Problems come at the end of the section and the answers come at the very back. After all your index and everything, you get an answer section. You want to take advantage, know that you're getting your answers correctly as your, as a measure of your preparation and how well you're understanding the sections. There's not a ton of homework here. Again, you could always go through, do the examples in the book, right? Treat those like a fresh problem. That's not a bad thing at all. Sometimes the book goes a little over the top in that sense that the book has problem number 1, parts A, B, C, and D, and I only ask you to do part A. So if you want extra examples in the book, we'll just do the ones that are just asking about part A. Use the video first would be my suggestion to make sure you're not going above and beyond. It's a good book, but it definitely talks even deeper than we need in some spots. So I recommend video first and then use the book as the supplement. Extra problems, all your homework problems, and the extra examples. If you ever wanted more homework problems, I have other books as well, but most students find that that's enough. The last thing I want to say, it's a good book, but again, since I'm not collecting your homework, any statistics book would technically be okay. Follow by section, do what I just said. Don't get too bogged down in the extras. Follow the problems that are the same as what we're saying, and you could technically get the same practice. But I'd still recommend getting our book. It's a lot easier to say how much homework, am I doing the right problems? It's just a little easier to stick with the rest of the class. Okay, so that's our book. Calculators come next. We do need a calculator. Nothing too special, scientific, graphing. These are both Texas Instruments, TIs, but doesn't matter. You don't need those specific, but you need more than a 4-function calculator. Some of the books really emphasize a lot of the extra features on the graphing calculator. You could use those as a confirmation, as a double check, but I'm not teaching you those. Part of the reasonable work that must be shown is that, you're showing it using the graphs, the tables. Don't get too caught up. We've mentioned the extra resources before, and if you just look up an answer online, you might be getting something that's just graphing calculator. I mean, it's one of the things I hate. Some people teach statistics on a graphing calculator, and it's basically just a memorized set of instructions of when do I hit which buttons. That really doesn't help everybody. So again, you don't need a graphing calculator. Any calculator will be fine. If you have the graphing calculator, our book especially and most other books have like a section at the end. How do you use the specific graphing calculator features? Again, If you want to do that as a double check, you won't get full points if you're only using the calculator solution. But if you want to use that as a double check, as a confirmation of your answer, that's certainly a fine thing to do. How will you be graded? Well, we are going to have 4 tests. They will all be announced well in advance, and those 4 tests are going to be 50% of your grade. Those will be the in-class portion of your grade. That's the 50% that we have here. How many points are each test worth? They're not all equal. Some tests are a little longer, a little shorter than others. So just add up your points earned, divide it by your points possible, and that'll give you your in-class average. Next, the writing projects. On the initial syllabus, it said 20%. It's 25%. Now, regular in-person, I have my assignments set up that I like. And what I'm trying to do is to build you towards a final assignment where you run your own statistical survey. You come up with a topic, pick a question, data you want to collect, go and collect the data, organize it, analyze it, make some decisions, consider what else we might want to know that goes along with that. That might be a bigger part. That would be a very big final project. Unfortunately, with the online environment, and even if things go better in the spring with the coronavirus, as we might hope, it still would be pretty irresponsible for me to say, go collect data, when there are other ways. But for most of us, the most efficient way for a lot of us is to collect data in person. But we don't want people mixing, so that's why, again, I'm changing it up. I still have a few decisions I'm going to make, but I already know of at least 2 big projects that are going to go into that, and it's, again, 25%. One of them is going to be I give you data, so that we can still get those aspects of crunching the numbers, organizing it, analyzing it, and thinking about what's missing. So we're still going to do that, but it's going to be subtly different in that I give you the data so that we're all on the same topic. That'll be one big project, one big writing assignment. A second is going to be very specific to you. At the end, how do you use statistics? How can statistics benefit you? And that's not the general you, the random person. That is specifically you, the person in this class, the person who, whatever your major is, whatever your background is, however you came to be here, how can statistics help you? And that might be you look at aspects of you as an individual. I have kids, so I have to think about the school board decisions. I am a homeowner. I'm buying products as a consumer. It might be things more specific to a career you're currently in. Something, I have this business and how I could use statistics to help make these decisions, or a future career you're hoping about. So it's going to very much connect directly to you. And like I said, we'll have at least 2 papers here. I might break it down into a third smaller one. But like I said, we're going to get started with the class. I'm not saying we're going to delay the writing too far down the road, but I definitely want to get us into the class, into the instructional videos, start getting into the nature of statistics, and then we'll have a separate video talking about writing in general, structure of writing, good habits, how to put together a paper, the difference between putting together a paper and just writing out an essay for something that you have on not just my exam, but exams in other classes. So we've got a lot to discuss, but we'll save and still have some of that for later. But for right now, you recognize writing as a part of this class. We will discuss it more. And at the end, 25% of your grade, but it will be a very guided 25%. Have very clear-cut criteria for each writing assignment, how you will get those points. So that's the writing. And then we'll also change, final exam was 30%. We'll change that, and that'll also be 25%. And that will be a cumulative final exam. How do you prepare for the final exam? The best way is to look through your old tests. Those are going to be your guide. Okay, so that's our grading. Academic integrity policy. Well, we have 2 things to say here. Number 1 is that don't cheat, okay? I am giving you, your tests. As again, we keep kind of discussing, you'll have plenty of time to submit them. Our class schedule, you'll get that test before 3 o'clock on Monday or Thursday. It'll be due by 5 o'clock the following day. So you have plenty of time. And, again, make sure you're following what is reasonable work. Make sure you're following the instructions that we're setting up through the videos. But, the biggest thing is that it's your work, not just that you're copying somebody else's. It still has to be your work. But the second thing, we do have some papers here, again, still should be your work. These papers are oriented in some way that plagiarism really doesn't make sense, but we should be clear that, again, there's no plagiarism, nothing like that. Any other questions, but that should be an easy topic, should hopefully have no issues with. Disabilities, anybody who has a disability and gets an accommodation, let me know. We'll take care of that, no problem at all. Topics. As you look through this portion of the syllabus, you notice we've got quite a bunch. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There's a lot of chapters. Now, they do have a very rough how many classes, how many hours. That's a very, very rough timeline. And you can kind of get a little bit of a sense on where we'll spend more of our time. But I'll make that very clear as we go along. And it's not all chapters are equal. Chapter 1 is pretty much a quick, what is statistics about? One video will move on. Later on, like probability, that's a pretty big chapter with a lot of components to it. So it's not exactly each chapter is an equal component of the class. So again, you'll see as we go along, but we've got a bunch here. There still is a lot of topics that we're going to get through and that we're going to have to work through. Anytime you feel like you're falling behind at all, or in general, you don't have to let me know on a day-to-day schedule like, oh, I fell behind. But you should be thinking about that. Like, oh, I fell behind a little bit this week. I didn't complete all the videos. As long as you're planning ahead, you'll be fine. And I'll always give you plenty of heads up for tests. So you could say, oh boy, I'm definitely behind. I need to catch up. Or I'm doing well just to plan my review so I'm ready for the test. But overall, I just want you to realize, got a lot of work, okay? This is not a trivial class, but it's kind of surprising how quickly and how it all comes together. But if you stick with me, this looks like a lot, but it's surprising, especially when people hear the cumulative nature that really scares people initially. But at the end, this class builds in such a way, and a lot of people, their tests, they feel like the tests get harder. And that may be true. I think it's a matter of perspective, but that may be true. But by the time we get to the end, a lot of people, they look at the beginning stuff and they just feel good. They've seen it. And that by the time we get to the end, if you've been sticking with us, that natural building process makes it feel like those early problems were a lot easier. So that's our basic schedule overall. And now let's flip to my part. And a lot of this will be very quick. My name, again, I'm Eric Sponza. Email esponza@qcc.cuny.edu. Again, that's the main thing. Questions. Whenever you have questions, things that come up. Some people, the beginning of the semester, they have lots of questions. As they get a little further along, they have better expectations. They're more accustomed to my style, what I'm looking for. So sometimes that kind of, decreases the number of questions that they're asking. But as I also just said, some people look at it, the material is getting harder, so they ask more questions. You do what you need to, everybody. You have questions, again, as long as you're keeping up with the schedule, there's plenty of time for us to have back and forth. And that if several people ask similar questions, I share with the class, we can expand on extra problems, do extra problems if necessary. But again, it starts with email. We may, if we have to set up other ways of communication, we can, but that's where it starts. So my phone number, that's my office phone, my office in the science building. I don't really plan on being on campus, so there's no real good way to get in contact with me there. I don't have access to my office phone number. So again, start off with emails. My office hours, I have official office hours, but I'm available when you need me. Again, I'm going to check my email every day, weekdays, weekends. I check multiple times a day so that you can send me an email. Now, you shouldn't expect a response from me in, 20 minutes, but you can get a reasonable response definitely by the next day so that you could keep making progress. And like I said, I want you to feel comfortable. Whether you're asking questions about anything, you're having problem with the material, we can talk about it. Problem with, again, the overall setup of the class. I think, again, a lot of good experience, a lot of good feedback with all the different classes. I've had stats like this before, so we had a lot of good feedback, but you could still let me know if you're having trouble, if other things come up, whether it's specific to the class, specific to the schedule. I want you, again, to feel very comfortable emailing me. And again, if you have some proposed solutions to what's giving you trouble, you can let me know. I can try and work in your guidelines. I can't always give you exactly what you want, but I can try. So, especially if it's reasonable. But I want you to feel comfortable emailing me, and at any time. If you send me an email super late at night because that's when it works for you, don't worry about that. Just don't expect an answer from me until the next day. Okay, so again, emails, there's that whole writing intensive paragraph is copied here again. In addition to the Math Learning Center that we talked about as a resource to get that individual instruction, there's also the Campus Writing Center. That's definitely a good spot. It's a little different though. The Math Learning Center, again, they truly are tutors, so that you should email them. When you contact and meet with them, you should have specifics. I want to talk about this specific section. I would like to look at these specific problems, either examples from the book, examples that we did in class, specific homework problems. That's the best way to get good progress, to get the most you can out of the Math Learning Center. But for the Campus Writing Center, this is where people think like, oh, I want someone to proofread my paper. To be quite honest, even though this is statistics, anybody should be able to proofread your paper. Your brother, sister, parents, friend, because if it's a good paper, and again, we'll talk all about this in a follow-up video, the structure of a paper, what is a thesis, introduction, body, conclusion. But anybody should be able to read your paper and say, okay, I get it. Even if they don't understand the topic, if you're doing a good job, they should be able to follow your arguments, see what you're saying, and even if you show them the criteria that you're being graded, they could say, okay, I see it. I see you clearly addressing this, this, and this. Now, they don't know if you're doing a good job with it, if you're making up nonsense or telling, that's where you should take advantage of that first submission. But my point is, the Campus Writing Center are not there for proofreading. They are there for structure. They are there, even if they are not statistics experts or whatever other class you may have to write a paper, they may not be experts in that field, but they know how to write. They know how to get you organized, how to brainstorm, how to just get your paper started. And then to add in the later details, to talk about order, to talk about structure, talk about transition, good introduction, good conclusion, all those things. That's the best way to take advantage of the Writing Center. Okay, a few additional notes. Well, no cell phones in class. Well, you're doing it at home, but I'd still recommend, right, when you're watching your videos, be focused. Treat it like it's class. Put the cell phone aside and really focus on classwork while you're doing classwork. Putting your head down will be asked to leave. Well, don't worry about that, right? Again, you're doing it at home. If you're really that exhausted, again, it's just that kind of day, pause the video, put it aside, just make sure you come back to it. Emails sent to me should be grammatically correct. Well, again, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but still the idea, make it clear. You send me an email, who are you, what class are you in, how can I help you? And if you have any proposed solutions, that would be a fourth component, but that's where we should go. Notes on grading, again, the 50% for in-class for exams, at least 1 week in advance notice. You miss an exam, that's a 0. I mean, you could have a bad exam and, how you could make up for it. I also have a note, there's no extra credit, by the way. So you prepare, you do the work, and that's how you get your grade. There's no extra assignments. You show me you can do well in this class by doing well on the tests and, on the assignments. But if anything comes up, right, it's better to get something than nothing. And if you fail to submit, that's a 0. That's not like a 50 or anything. You definitely want to get points, and don't let that happen. Again, if something does come up, contact me. Let me know what's going on. Even if you get a late penalty for a submission, again, some points are a lot better than no points. 25% for writing. How many writing projects? Again, the directions, the rubrics, dates, all that's coming. I have a note on attendance. Good attendance is every day. Successful students will attend all classes, complete all assignments. Well, the online version of that is successful students will read all emails, watch all videos, and complete all assignments. That's like the equivalent. That'll put you in the same position. A few notes on schedule. We have a few weird days, but I'll always point that out as we go along. We have we don't meet Wednesday. This Thursday is a Tuesday schedule. Note regarding winter travel. Again, hopefully with this setup, we don't have to worry about winter travel. We're doing this where we're ready at home and that we're safe. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Anything else? Again, you still certainly want to watch the third video with your first assignment and talking about the test submissions. And you also want to, get through all the introduction videos, but you also want to watch that beginning, that first instructional video, what statistics is about. You want to get your textbook, you want to be prepared, and that way next week we can get just that little bit deeper and get to that spots where we get a little deeper what the class is really about and start getting our homework.